Cheers, and welcome to the NooK on the Voluntary Virtues Network. I'm your host today, Matt, along with John, Mike, Christy, and Ian. And today we're going to be talking about property in a voluntary society. Should be interesting, but first, like always, we're going to start off with beer. And tonight I'm drinking Vanilla Porter by Breckenridge Brewery. Looks like
in
Colorado.
Yeah, Breckenridge. I went skiing there.
All the way from Colorado, and it's pretty damn good if you ask me.
I'd have to agree with you there, Mike. Smells good, tastes good. I didn't see a percentage on here, but 4.7, so not too high, but still good.
4.7, solid.
Solid.
Better than a Budweiser.
Ah, yes. Budweiser. That's nasty.
Yeah.
Don't send us any advertising dollars.
Yeah.
We don't want your money.
No, I'll
That-
take it.
Don't sue us either. But
Buttery tasting and made with rice. I'll try to avoid that if I can. Budweiser, but yeah, definitely.
What was that? Buttery tasting what?
It tastes like It tastes a little buttery tasting, and Budweiser is made with rice, and so it just
Oh,
got
I
a
didn't know
weird.
that.
Yeah.
That's why.
I've had rice beer that's good, but the way they do it with that, they mix it with rice and the grain to save a couple cents, and yeah, bullshit. Yeah.
Okay.
Not really the best beer. And one you're ever getting money ever again.
yeah, I won't drink it. John?
My fermented beverage of choice tonight is Kavita Mango Coconut Probiotic Drink.
I just tried that the other day. It's really good.
I enjoy
Yeah,
it.
it's very, very good. Yummy.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Christy?
Pinot Noir, wine.
Yeah, that's the way.
And we can get wine. We can get wine dollars too. So.
Well, I mean,
We've got
it's always
wineries
fun,
all
but-
around.
Anybody who wants to send us money, we'll take it.
Yeah. If you send us a check for $5,
right.
we will
Or
gladly
bottles.
cash
Or
it.
bottles.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Yes, or bottles.
Bitcoin,
yes.
whatever.
We will take bottles too. Yes.
Actually, yeah, we would prefer Bitcoin or some other
send us
alternative.
Your,
Yes.
Send us your beer, wine, kombucha.
Yeah.
We'll rate it on the show.
I think that's a great idea.
There
we
you
have
go.
so many viewers. Look at the count.
And since this is not FCC regulated, you can send us whatever you want, and it will not be a problem.
Ooh.
Yes.
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 There's no PO problems here. Ian?
I'm drinking water tonight, so I can drink
man.
plenty of beer tomorrow.
There you go.
And tomorrow I've got quite the lineup. I've got a who's who San Diego breweries. I've got
Oh, wow.
Alpine Beer Company growlers. I've
Where are
got
they,
Pro-
Julie?
There's an Alpine beer?
They're
Alpine,
Force and Alpine.
Alpine. Okay,
Yeah,
Alpine.
no,
Yeah.
some of the
They're
best
getting
beer in
snow
San
today.
Diego.
Yeah.
Like I've got Nelson, which is their rye IPA, 7%. But 60
Nice.
IBUs, I believe all Nelson. It's fantastic. I got Modern Times ready to go, and then Societe. And I'm going to enjoy every
Very
drop
cool.
of
That's
it.
neat.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good
Yeah,
lineup.
It does. Very cool.
Delicious. Local breweries are where it's at because they just do a better job. There's no way around that. Your local brewery will always do a better job.
And your palate gets trained to your local breweries.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I came to San Diego, I couldn't stand IPAs. Now it's the only thing I can drink.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny. Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
It's
it
gotta
is
be
interesting.
bitter,
Yeah.
yeah.
I like
It's
a good
it's gotten
IPA.
to the point with me where if I drink specifically, and again, talk about not getting money ever. Specifically, if I drink Budweiser, my stomach reacts really badly to it. Like seriously, I'll have like one or two of them, and my stomach's just like, what is
Are
it?
you a
Like,
beer snob?
I guess like my body's telling me I am. I don't like to think of myself as a beer snob, but if I have like Budweiser, my stomach's like, what is
And
this?
it's
This is
okay,
weird.
It's
Meh.
highly carbonated
Yeah.
Pilsner piss. Like it's disgusting.
Yeah,
It really
I mean,
is.
so
You
yeah.
can't go back. Once you have
You can't
good,
go back.
you can't go back.
Yeah.
You just can't. San
I know I
Diego's
can't.
now beer snobbery. It really is. We are beer
San
snobs.
Diego is.
There-
We're
there-
beer snobs because we like good beer.
There
You
is
need the property to grow the house.
Yeah,
there
you go.
is more
Ooh,
breweries
there you go.
per capita in San Diego County than almost any other
Yeah,
place in the country.
that's very
So,
cool.
which is really
Yeah,
kind of interesting
is.
for a very small location. Really, it's there's an amazing amount of breweries around.
Yeah.
But so the topic of tonight is all right. Yeah, property. But to get into a little bit more of a microcosm of it, this is a very interesting problem, which is probably at one point or another going to occur in the future of this planet. So I'm saying specifically this planet because this is going to go with my argument later on. But So what happens, we're assuming here that at one point there will be no government and we will have a voluntary society. So what happens when you have all the property owned? That everything that can be owned as physical land on this planet is owned, you're obviously going to have people that own a lot more property than others. So what do we do when it comes to a situation where, like, let's throw this out there. You've got some guy who has millions or billions of dollars. He lives in New York City. And let's say he owns, which when it comes to that part of the country is a pittance. But let's say in Utah he owns 10,000 acres. But he never goes there. He never contacts anybody there. He simply owns this, let's call it a square of land in Utah. What happens over time if he never maintains it, never contacts anybody, never has somebody overseeing the property? At one point, I mean, this is kind of like the way I look at it. Well, okay, so at what point does it become somebody else's, or is it always his, as long as nobody has ever taken a claim against it? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Well, I think what was brought up earlier is that property only exists because the state keeps track of it, right? The state is.
I'll disagree.
I'm not sure
well,
if that's.
yeah, go ahead.
I'm not
No.
sure if that's the whole
Well,
of it.
I would like to say that I hope that it's through conversations like this that voluntarism doesn't evolve to a place where someone can accumulate that much, either capital or land or whatever. But let's just go with the scenario, right? And I'm not going to say that I'm highly conversant in this, but I would say that we could, look for refining our language and go down the avenue, let's say property, to make a distinction between property and possession. And a possession could be your toothbrush, your laptop, your car, all these things that are for personal use. They aren't like the machines of production, if you will. And those things that we typically identify as needing the state to facilitate as being property, if you will, right? So like the big machines in industry, the big banks that are part of the whole finance mechanism, the state which is responsible for locking down information, if you will, through patent and intellectual property or patent and copyright. So we could go down that road and let's clear up our definitions on what is property, vice, possession, you know.
Well, if I were to buy a piece of property, I would think that's my possession. You know, like because I bought these coordinates on a map, and regardless of whether I did any work on it, that's my property. You know, I don't. Where is it said that if I don't do
it
anything?
serves in this scenario?
Doesn't matter.
Well, this guy buys this land. Is he buying it as an investment? Is it somehow tied up into making more money, using money to make money? Therefore, it becomes capital. And he makes money maybe by not developing it, not by using it through subsidies or something like that. Like in this scenario, when this guy he was a guy, right? Has this land. Why does he have this land?
Guy or gal, doesn't matter.
Well,
Just
that's
simply,
what I thought you said, guy.
individual that, you know.
I'm not worried about it. Don't worry.
We just don't want to be a Christy, like the only girl and the thing, like, you know, like that sort of thing. No,
It's
no,
all
yeah,
right,
okay.
don't worry about it.
I would hope that there's some kind of social pressures that would prevent someone from becoming a land baron, if you will, you know. But that being said, if you have 1,200 acres because you need X amount of acre per cattle for healthy beef, then
Right.
that's obviously a useful and productive use of land, as opposed to someone who's speculating and sitting on
Ethics versus something I paid money for. If I paid money for a plot of land that has certain coordinates, you know, based on the coordinates I think it is who's going to keep track of that. That's really, without a state, who's going to keep track of that?
Well, I
If
think
we have
that,
a system,
I think
right
that's-
to buy that land from who bought the land before and so on.
because they gave money
Who
to it.
licensed that? If that
So-
I don't
who
know.
bought the
Well, okay, then we go the chicken and egg.
So-
Where did it start?
I think
So
what
you're
it,
more of a steward on the land than you are an owner.
No, I
of the
can
land.
buy
Just
steward
kind
of
of
the
more,
land.
you know.
I can.
so I think it's more about who is actually controlling the land, who is actually using it, who is interacting with it.
So so here's a scenario. I buy this land. Let's say it's 10,000 acres.
From who?
No,
Or-
from somebody.
yeah,
From somebody who we all agreed to this body
who had a legitimate,
Who had
who
a-
was legitimately owned
owned it.
however,
Right.
Okay, so
But then I did nothing with it. I just did absolutely nothing with it.
okay.
So you're saying somebody could come there and just take it away from me? I mean, maybe I was saving it for my grandkids, and I wanted,
What
know.
if your land
but I
has a
wasn't
fire
do-
on it and it burns because it wasn't cleared properly, because it wasn't taken
Then
care
I would be
because it wasn't
responsible for
stewarded,
it.
you'd be
Then I'm
really-
responsible for it.
So you'd
I
have
should
to
have
somehow,
insurance.
you'd have to
Yeah.
somehow tend the land so.
Yeah, I would. Yes, I'd be responsible for.
Well, there's
things.
something to John's distinction that I think we're losing. And I mean, for you to say that this is my land and you need to respect these coordinates, that is an ethical question also.
It
Or
is.
you're not
You're
saying
right.
like this isn't ethical, that is.
It is.
But what John is saying, what is the purpose of the land? A toothbrush is a possession that has a purpose to clean your teeth.
But let's say
Someone
I
else doesn't
have
have to
no
say, but-
purpose. But I have no purpose for
But the
it.
point is, people need land to survive.
Right.
They
I
need
agree.
to grow food. They need spaces to live and have shelters.
But what if I rented
I'd
it?
love-
What if I rented it to people?
I'd
They
like to
couldn't
add-
afford. Yeah.
I'd like to add, Chrissy, too, is like, if, at least for me, I would like to at least have the conversations that help voluntarism evolve to something that's sustainable.
Right.
If we come to a place where we are engaging, where people are near universally engaging nonviolently, in a voluntary method, nonviolently, and the population grows because their quality of life is growing,
Right.
because people are no longer killing each other, you know, near universally. There's that still the 2% of like biologically wrong-wired people that will
Right.
still commit acts of violence. But if we can get to a point where near universally violence is a thing of the past, then we would look at our numbers growing, right? And we'd have to take into consideration self-policing of our own population, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying to whatever that looks like, you know, without, you know, I think that a rational, reasonable populace would say it's not best to just keep spitting babies out until we can't feed ourselves anymore, right? And so anyway, you're getting us to a place where, yeah, how can we still
I
go
mean,
on if
morally-
if all the arable land
Okay,
is
so
booked up?
morally, if I was the owner of that 10,000 square feet, I did nothing to it, that would be unethical, I think. And that's where to me, I'd have to go for me. It would be unethical for me to just do nothing with it. You know, I'm just
But there's a question here though, and this is when you have this type of ownership where you have people that own vast stretches of land that other people need to survive, it changes how that person that owns the land understands and sees that land. It's not potentially something, well, this is how a lot of philosophers and sociologists would view this. It's no longer something that is used to support life. It is an investment. And their interest becomes tied to the investment of that land. So the decisions that they make become based on profit.
Thank you, and yeah, we're divorced from nature, right?
Yeah.
So that's exactly what I want. You said it so well, but basically, yeah, we become divorced from nature.
But is profit bad? I mean,
We can
I
see
guess
this,
is
though.
it bad to own land and have
no,
profit
it's
I
not.
don't
I don't think that's the essential argument, in my opinion. At least, like from what I get in from like what John and Ian is saying is that I don't think that owning a lot of land in itself is bad. I don't think that's the argument they're saying. It's simply correct me if I'm wrong, but the motivation for owning
It's not
or
a motivation. It changes you. So my thing is, I'm not going to comment on whether it's right or wrong to own something, but I will say, to own something that can contribute or perpetuate the suffering of others, and for you to sustain that type of ownership because you're not able to see the people who are suffering or your relationship
I
to
think it's
them
an
is
ethics.
a problem.
I think it's ethics.
Well,
I mean,
but
that's
this
an
is
ethical thing.
everything is
No?
ethical and
Right,
moral at
okay,
this point,
it
though.
is,
So,
right, yeah.
so here's an example I think would help clarify this. So I teach at a university and I teach my students about social theory. One of the examples I give them when I start talking about Karl Marx is he has this concept called the fetishism of commodities. It's when we start to see the commodities as taking on a life of their own and kind of dictating what we do. Right?
Okay.
It's not a real thing. But really, what we're not seeing when we start to view commodities in that way is the other people involved in these situations. So from my personal experience, this is the scenario I like to present. So I was in Chicago last summer, and I was just in the city. You just see all the normal things you would see in a big urban center. You drive 20 minutes out of Chicago, and you see cornfields where corn is rotting on the stalk because it will not be harvested. And so you have to think about this.
Why won't it be harvested though?
Well, this is what we're getting to. So the thought exercise is, there are hungry people in Chicago 20 minutes away from this farm. But the farmer, it makes more sense for them to not harvest this corn and to let it rot on the stalk. Why is this reasonable for the farmer to do this? And that's the thought
That's the
experiment.
state though, isn't it? The state,
It
because
does-
the state, they
it
give
is.
them.
It is
It does
subsidized.
They tell
There is
them
a
it
It's
comes
because
down-
it's
yeah.
subsidized.
Yeah.
But if
It's
it
because
wasn't
But
but from the
subsidized,
farmer's perspective,
The market
it-
value, right?
the corn is not about sustaining life. The corn is about profit.
but
So I-
is,
I-
okay, but
I-
is that
so I-
because the state gets involved in it?
So
If
I'd
the
like to-
state wasn't involved, would it really, they wouldn't have those.
I'd like to point out how involved
Misalignment.
the state is also in real estate when we're talking real estate and actual transfer of ownership of properties, and not to mention the banks. The banks are completely entrenched in this too. So when you have those two in the middle, you don't have people trading property owner to owner. You have a middleman in there, so you don't see the actual
person,
the
right.
person who's been
Yeah.
running it, and then when you do take care of something for a long time and you want us to transfer the ownership, you don't want it to go somewhere. You don't want it to crash. And, I mean, sometimes there's bad intent, but it's most likely that person's going to have more of an interest in helping the people in the community that he's been working with than a bank or the government
Right.
handling the
There are
loans.
some bad people, but yes, in majority, yes. Person to person is much better than a.
Yes, I think the banks and the government being in control of property and the distribution of property is one of the major issues we have right now with actual concept of how you become an owner of something, because they can just print up the wealth whenever they want and really manipulate who does get a house, who does not, who gets a loan, who doesn't, all that. So I think it'd be different.
So let's say I have this 10,000 acres and I did nothing with it. What would you do to me in the scenario of?
I mean, the other thing is, well, who would
Tar
you
and
buy?
feather you and
There you
burn you at the
go.
stake.
No.
That's what we do.
Well, who'd you-
No, that's not what we're gonna do. 'Cause
That's the
no,
other
it's not
thing.
that bad. It's just like it's.
Well, that's the
you
other
know.
thing, though. Who sold it to you? Like, somebody would have had to sell that to you. And if I'm selling something to somebody, I'm gonna want to make sure, hey, they're actually doing something good with it.
Really?
If there's gonna, I mean,
Not me. If
I
I
would.
sold my land, it's like I sold it. That's just me. I
Well,
just sold my
that's the
home in
thing,
Georgia. I don't know what they're gonna do with that home. I sold my home. Maybe I'm bad and wrong.
but
as a
isn't
bad person,
isn't that
but-
what using your business relationship with other people, the volunteering doing business with somebody, choosing people that you think are in your interest to
I
do
have
business
absolutely
with.
no idea who these people were who bought the home.
So, but don't you
They
think?
paid money, and now I paid off my mortgage, and
So maybe in a
it was
case like that, it's
transaction.
not.
It was-
Possessions of property are gonna have a different value, I mean, really gonna have a different value too.
And Christy was okay with simply the concept of somebody giving her
And
money
it's
for
also a
property
I
that
was,
she
house
I
and-
really- I
and she
was.
was
It's
fine with
also-
that.
Suburbia. It's not like it's.
It's also something that it's a house. It's something
Right,
somebody's going to be living
right.
in most
I
likely.
knew.
and
Yes. Right.
You probably have a general idea of what's going to be happening.
Yes.
But if I can be really simplistic when it comes to this is super simplistic, and we can get back to the heavier concepts involved. But so let's say go back to what the original premise is, because I think we kind of agreed upon it for the most part. Is dude, New York City, thousands of miles away, owns 10,000 acres in Utah. It would be super smart for that guy to have somebody stewarding that property. He pays the dude to live there and maintain the property. I think that's something we can all agree upon. That would be probably the smartest thing to do. He's paying somebody to maintain the property to say, like, no, this is still something that I care about, I'm maintaining, I'm paying you to do it. That person has some sort of vested interest in the property. Going from that, that's where we get into the nitty-gritty detail of it. Well, so what if that guy doesn't send somebody to maintain the property? What if he doesn't?
Well, there's a lot of
You-
slumlords
what
out there.
you know?
There are.
What if he?
There are.
What if that guy puts up some barbed wire
Yeah.
fence It sits there for.
What would we do as a voluntary
It
society?
sits there for 30 years. Nobody ever sees the owner of that property, and it just sits there. At some point or another, now I'm not saying that this is right or wrong. Here's a rare instance of me being really pragmatic about a statement, that at one point or another, if somebody puts up a bunch of barbed wire and T-posts in the ground, after a couple years, people are going to start going into that property. It's just what's going to happen. Whether it's moral or immoral, that's what people are going to do. They're just gonna be like, oh, I've never seen anybody on that property. Sure, there's a bunch of barbed wire around it, but I've never seen a soul there. And so that's what's going to happen.
They're doing it now with guerrilla gardens and things like that too.
No,
right?
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
you're seeing that happen in
Right.
Detroit. The
Right.
whole city is, or what used to be
Which-
the city.
I mean, but if I were a landowner, I would be okay with that. You know,
Right.
it's like,
So-
I mean, they're just using it. I'm not doing anything with it. They're using it. They're putting their own water into it. I'm not having, to me, that would be cool. Morally, see, I think it's a moral and ethical thing.
Well,
It's like if
it
you're
is,
doing bad
it
things, like
is.
keeping destroying the corn. That's a moral and ethical.
Well,
That's bad. That's horrible.
that's what I
You know?
raised the initial question is our point where do think it's a moral and ethical
Yeah.
issue, and that we need to consider it, because if our intent is to philosophically advance society, right, and we want it to be sustainable, I think these are issues that we need to address, that we need to
For
yeah,
sure.
acknowledge,
they're
right?
important.
I can see technology now that can enable us to handle these complex issues. You know, social networking. If it becomes, for instance, socially taboo to be a land baron, for lack of better reasons, there's plenty of ways to non-violently network and ding somebody. You know what I mean? You know, you can ding Tyson Farms now if you don't like the way they do their chicken and you know, or treat the chickens and whatnot. We've gotten to a point where we can start dinging them through ostracizing and stuff like this. We're not, you don't see it widespread right now, but I mean, the technologies are emerging that we can do that, and we don't necessarily need to lobby politicians or whatever to make a new law or to create a new policy. We, the people, can start owning
But
it.
would people get
and-
violent against people? That's what I worry about. You know, it's like, what are they going to do? Use force to do something to this landowner? I don't know. I just don't know.
I definitely couldn't advocate any use of force
Right.
against somebody.
And
Yeah.
I
But
don't
I
think
think-
anybody here could, but
I think another thing though is
Yeah.
if someone
Sorry.
isn't like on a property maintaining it or anything, and never does go there or send anybody
Right.
there, they wouldn't even know if someone had used that property or was continuing to use it.
But let's say I come back after I have this 10,000 acres, I'm not using it, but I really wanted it for
Yeah,
my
so-
prodigy, you know.
something
for my-
happened.
So-
yeah.
and then
I
they
think
did,
there'd be
and
a-
I went
there'd be
back
a-
and I'm like, oh my God, like
Yeah,
what
there'd
it's
be a
like,
few issues. Number one, did that person even know you owned it? Nobody was
well,
doing
that's
anything
possible.
there.
I try to use my words first, you know, really as
Yeah.
an adult and try to work with them.
Yeah,
I mean,
like if they
yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
that, then
Right.
hey, maybe now this person could work out a business deal with you, and you
Yeah.
could both be happy.
Yeah,
Exactly. Would
yeah.
you be able to come to agreement? Like, I've thought about that quite a bit. That exact same situation, where there's a chunk of property, not maintained. Somebody decides to homestead it, and the legal term for that is not called what's the word for it? It's not called squatting. The actual legal term is called adverse possession. Yeah. Look that one up. That's a weird one. But so somebody goes on that property, decides they're going to build a house on it. They've never seen anybody approach the property. They've never seen anything like that. They saw a barbed wire fence, but it's rusted. It's not kept. They don't know. So they built a house on it. Some guy comes up, says, "No, this is my property. You're doing something you haven't been allowed to do on my property. I've never seen you. I don't know who you are. Well, why are you here? Well, this is my property. I'm claiming it is. Let's say they pull out a deed. No, this is my property. Okay. Well, so at this point, you have a conflict of interest. You have a guy who has his property, who wants it the exact same way he left it. Which, if he doesn't maintain it, there's no way it was the exact same way he left it. That will never happen. If you have a property, own it, and you never approach it, never touch it, it will not be the exact same way you left
Yes,
it.
but I wouldn't expect a house to be on it.
Okay,
you know.
but so let's just say there was. Okay, So, I mean, worst case scenario, somebody else straight up homesteaded the thing, put up a house, and lives there. It would probably be in the owner's best interest, to have some sort of negotiation with them. And that's what I'm saying. Like a voluntary society, this shit can work out.
It could.
It's just you just have to think a little bit more about it. So that's a bad situation. Somebody has homesteaded your property, which you have not maintained, which is your problem. That's your fault. You didn't maintain the property.
And you didn't protect it either. You didn't.
Yeah. You put up some
right.
T-posts and barbed wire, and you didn't approach it for 30 years, and somebody
Right.
else built a house on it. So you didn't maintain it. That guy knew it was somebody's property at one point or another because he could see rusted barbed wire and T-posts, but saw that nobody ever approached it, decided, well, okay, fine, I'd like to put up a house and this is available land. And so they're both in the wrong, so it would be equitable for both of them to say, like, okay, well, let's say from property owner's perspective, you have this land that you're homesteading this land that I own. You're maintaining it because you built a house there. You have a vested interest in keeping this property safe from other people. How about this? You stay here, and I'm just not going to charge you rent for it. There's a good chance that the guy who's built the house on there is going to agree to that. He's going to be like, oh, so I can still stay here exactly as I was before? Yup.
So here's a scenario.
Okay.
And I'm going future into that.
Okay, cool.
Is people start seeing people doing that, and they're going to start doing that to all the land. And I'm not saying that that's bad. What people will do is just not buy land anymore. It's like they'll just, which maybe that's what we want. We want a place where people aren't buying lots of land.
I don't see it as a situation where
but
nobody's
people are
going to be
gonna do
buying land anymore. But if you're not,
Well, if you can't,
if you're not maintaining the property at one point or another, that's what is going to happen. People are just going to do that. They're going to say, oh, that guy hasn't touched, I mean, my grandpa told me that guy hasn't touched that property. And I'm, 25.
Henry George has some
if
interesting
there's
things to
nothing
say
but-
about this.
So I'm saying if there's no
Yeah.
state to
All right.
enforce property, it may just disappear anyways. I mean, the land, it may maybe not in our lifetime, but over time, if there's no state to enforce it, it may just become willy-nilly, It may, I don't know. I'm looking at, if this were to happen often,
Public
people would
land.
say, well, why?
I think
I'm just gonna go on this land, there's nobody on there, and nobody's gonna do anything. And so we have lots of people in cities that would love to live out in the boonies, and have a piece of property for their family, and I'm not saying it's bad,
We're back on the air. We had a little technical difficulty there, but we are back. And we were, I think somebody knew.
I don't know.
Christy,
I don't remember what I
you're
was talking
saying
about.
something about.
robot
I think we're
sex?
pretty much wrapping it up
Yeah.
here.
No, I mean, I don't think we had gotten to robot sex yet.
Yeah,
But
we hadn't gotten
but if we're gonna go into robot sex, which you.
Right.
We got
Damn
to-
it, we'll get there
Sorry.
eventually. We'll eventually be able to talk about robot sex. Apparently, this is the end of it again, and we haven't gotten to talk about robot sex.
We talked about chocolate robots today, though.
We did talk.
So do
Chocolate
you
robots.
think that chocolate could possibly simulate love
Ooh.
to AI
I know it makes me feel
and
really
have
freaking
something
good.
to do with robots?
And so I guess going with the topic a little bit today is that if you were to wander upon a cabin in the woods, upon a property that which you could not see was maintained, and there was an android slumped over in this cabin in the woods that was obviously not maintained. If you were to somehow bring this android back to life, would you be allowed to have sex with it in an
Yes.
ethical sense?
As long as
If it's sentient, it has
Yes,
to
it has to agree to it.
consent
Yes.
to
It does have to
Totally, yes.
consent to it.
Yes. Then does it-
that's
is
the
there
important part
even-
we're talking about
is
is
there a
consent.
question about
How do
it?
you identify it?
I mean, do we have time to talk about this, or are we
Oh,
done?
man,
No,
I think
we're-
we're
I
gonna have to
think
cover
we're-
this
no,
during
it's
our
like,
robot sex episode.
Christ.
Which
The soon to come robot sex episode, yes.
soon.
Watch the next one.
Yeah.
Watch the next one. It might be the.
It might be the
It might
robot
be
sex
the-
episode.
Maybe. Cheers. Have a good night.
Peace.
Have a good weekend.
Good night.